Hello, my name is Alex Love. I'm an attorney here at Oliva Gibbs. I've been with the firm for 18 months and I'm based out of the Houston office. I'm excited to present on this topic today because I believe it's very timely. We're in the midst of the AI boom and the oil and gas industry is playing a crucial role in AI data center build-outs across the country.
My name is Robert Royce and I'm an attorney in the Houston office. I primarily work on our Haynesville assets for the Oklatex team in East Texas. As everyone knows, AI is a hot topic everywhere, but I got interested in this specific topic because I started to see news articles about large tech companies buying up land in West Texas for AI data centers. Originally, I wondered why they would want to be in West Texas, but then I realized that AI data centers require massive amounts of electricity, and of course, West Texas has plenty of natural gas to supply the electricity that they need.
Hi, my name is Janette Uribe, and I am also an attorney here at the Houston office. I primarily focus on reviewing title and drafting title opinions, and I initially became interested in the topic just hearing all the buzz in the news. I kept hearing AI, and I wanted to know how AI played a role in the oil and gas industry, so I just started to dig in.
Here's a quick overview on what we'll be discussing today. I'll be discussing the history of artificial intelligence. Janette will be discussing natural gas and AI data centers. Robert will be discussing carbon capture and sequestration for natural gas-powered AI data centers. Finally, I will close us out with a discussion on opportunities for oil and gas professionals. Before we dive into our discussion on AI data centers and oil and gas and natural gas, I think it's helpful to start with a bit of background. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a term we hear about every single day. Whether we're in professional meetings, chatting with friends, or even scrolling on our phones, AI seems to come up in every conversation. Most of us interact with AI daily through ChatGPT, Siri, Google Assistant, or other AI platforms. But have you ever stopped and asked, what exactly is AI, and where did it originate? I'll admit, I didn't really think deeply about that question until I started preparing for this presentation. But understanding where AI began gives us valuable perspective on where it's headed, especially as it intersects with the energy industry. While AI feels like a moderate innovation, the concept actually dates back decades. In 1950, computer scientist Alan Turing, often called the father of AI, published a paper called Computer Machinery and Intelligence. In that paper, he asked a question, can machines think? Turing argued that machines could indeed learn, much like children do, rather than being programmed for every single task. He proposed what became known as the Turing test. In simple terms, Turing suggested a game where a person chats via text with two hidden entities, one human and one machine. If the person couldn't tell which was which, then the machine could be said to think. That idea completely changed the conversation from what is intelligence to can machines behave intelligently? A few years later, in 1956, John McCarthy, a math professor at Dartmouth, brought together a group of scientists for a summer workshop to explore the potential of thinking machines. The idea was that every aspect of learning or intelligence could be described precisely enough that a machine could simulate it. This event, known as the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence, was where McCarthy first coined the term artificial intelligence. In the 1960s, American inventor George Devol created the first industrial robot called Unimate. Unimate worked on the General Motors assembly line, moving and welding auto parts. It wasn't true AI by today's standards, but it was groundbreaking, and at the time it paved the way for automation as we know it. Around the same time, Joseph Weizenbaum developed ELIZA, one of the first natural language processing programs. ELIZA mimicked human conversation using pattern matching, pretending to be a psychotherapist. When users typed in sentences, it responded with short, text-based responses. It was the world's first chatbot, and it proved that computers could simulate human-like dialogue. Then, in the 1980s, a programmer named Rollo Carpenter created Jabberwocky, another chatbot that could actually learn from each conversation. Instead of following pre-coded rules, it adapted over time. This was a major step toward the machine learning we use today. Fast forward to the present. Today's AI relies heavily on machine learning and deep learning. These models are trained on billions of parameters through repeated computations, which requires immense processing power. That's where AI data centers come in. An AI data center is a specialized facility built to train, deploy, and deliver AI applications. These centers rely on GPUs, which are graphical processing units, and TPUs, which are tensor processing units, to perform massive calculations. They also use advanced networking, huge storage systems, and powerful cooling systems to handle the immense workloads. But all that computing power requires an enormous amount of energy, and that's where the oil and gas industry steps in. So with that, I want to take a moment to introduce our next speaker, Janette. She's going to dive deeper into how the oil and gas industry, especially natural gas producers, are helping meet the massive energy demands created by AI data centers. With that, I'll turn it over to her.
In my presentation, I will be talking about natural gas and AI data centers. So the big question is, why use natural gas to power AI data centers? Well, natural gas is a good option because natural gas is one of the most reliable sources of electricity today. And because natural gas is already the most used source of electricity in the United States. Also, the infrastructure to produce and transport natural gas is already built, and it is located in places where AI data centers have decided to make their homes. So how does natural gas become electricity? Natural gas is first drilled, then collected and transported by pipelines to a treatment plant that removes water or waste, then sent to a power plant. And at the power plant, the conversion process can take place by several different means, including by boiler, combustion turbine, or by using both systems. By boiler, water is boiled, creating steam that spins the turbine and generates electricity. By combustion turbine, pressurized gas turns the blades of a turbine connected to a generator. Magnets then spin the generator and create an electric current. When using both methods, the energy created by one turbine generates more energy in another turbine. After one engine completes the conversion cycle, heat exhaust is transferred to a heat exchanger. A second engine extracts energy from the heat to begin its own conversion cycle. Finally, after the conversion process, electricity is then sent through power lines to be used for residential, commercial, industrial, or transportation purposes. Now let's talk about natural gas pipelines and AI data centers. There are three types of natural gas pipelines that are used to power AI data centers. There are gathering pipelines, transmission pipelines, and distribution pipelines. Gathering pipelines transport the natural gas collected from wellheads to central location points like storage facilities, processing plants, or transmission pipelines. Transmission pipelines move high volumes of natural gas from the production and processing plants, storage facilities, and distribution centers. Distribution pipelines deliver natural gas to homes, businesses, and facilities. As the demand for AI data centers grew between 2023 and 2024, the U.S. natural gas pipeline infrastructure saw slight growth in the three types of pipelines. Gathering pipelines have seen a 0.97% increase. Transmission pipelines have seen a 0.58% increase, and distribution pipelines have seen a 1.14% increase. So why are we talking about pipelines? What roles do they play in the world of AI data centers? Well, some of the largest AI data center projects are in areas with the densest transmission pipelines. And the high concentration of pipelines in these regions give natural gas a competitive edge in becoming the main source of power for these projects. For instance, Texas has over 58,500 miles of pipelines, and also in Texas is Project Stargate, which is a $500 billion joint venture investment between Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI, building AI data centers that are each 500,000 square feet. And Louisiana has over 18,900 miles of pipelines. Also in Louisiana is a $10 billion investment by Meta Platforms, which is constructing a 2 gigawatt plus AI data center close to the size of Manhattan. And Oklahoma, with 18,500 miles of pipelines, Core Scientific and AI hyperscaler CoreWeave are building a 100 megawatt facility. Additionally, Google has invested over $4.8 billion in its Mayors County, Oklahoma data center. There is a current government incentive to note. The bill, often called the One Big Beautiful Bill, signed into law July 4th, 2025, by President Donald Trump, lifts restrictions in the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 concerning tax deductions for intangible drilling costs, which are often between 60% and 80% of total costs. And what is the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022? Among other things, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 is a U.S. law aimed to address climate change, lower prescription drug costs, and reduce the national deficit. It focuses on accelerating the transition to clean energy through tax credits and other incentives. Even though natural gas is a very good source option, there is a current issue with the backlog of the turbine supply. U.S. utilities are projecting rapid growth driven by AI electrification and industrial expansion, nearly the equivalent of adding California, Texas, and a New York to the power bulk system. But the booming demand for turbines has led major suppliers to report an extended delivery time. Some of the major suppliers of turbines are Mitsubishi Power, GE Vernova, and Siemens Energy. Mitsubishi has reported that turbines ordered today will be delivered until 2028 to 2030. Siemens has a record backlog of $148 billion. And GE Vernova has reported that new turbines will not be available until late 2028 at the earliest. So why does this matter? Well, if the turbine supply does not increase, utility production may not be able to keep up with the consumption. Additionally, the short supply of turbines has led turbine costs to increase, costing the ratepayer, which is me and you, more money. Also, we are seeing that budget planning is becoming more difficult because estimated costs in the planning process are often much higher during the contract. So what now? Current turbine suppliers are ramping up manufacturing. We just don't know if it will be fast enough to meet the increasing AI demand. While suppliers work with these issues, there are near-term solutions. One of them is an energy-efficient solution, which would mean deploying renewable energy and improving energy efficiency. Another is virtual power plants. A virtual power plant is composed of hundreds or thousands of households and businesses that offer the latent potential of their thermostats, electric vehicles, appliances, batteries, and solar arrays to support the grid. These devices can be flexibly charged, discharged, and managed to meet the grid's needs. When these devices are aggregated and coordinated, they can provide many of the same energy services as a traditional power plant. And another one is grid-enhancing technologies, which is hardware and software solutions that increase the capacity, efficiency, and reliability of the existing power lines, often at lower costs than building new infrastructure. Another option is clean repowering, which happens by connecting nearby clean energy resources to the grid using an existing power plant's interconnection point. The whole process from applying the interconnection to commercial operation can shrink from an average of 5 years to less than 1 year. And finally, hybrid power couples. We're building data centers alongside wind, solar, and batteries near the existing grid connection sites can fast-track electricity needed for AI without forcing families and businesses to pay more money. But regardless of the turbine supply issue, natural gas continues to be the best source of electricity we can use today. And with that, I will pass it over to Robert, who will talk to you about carbon capture.
Thanks, Janette. I'll be discussing carbon capture and sequestration, CCS for short, for natural gas-powered AI data centers. While natural gas-powered electricity is a key component to meet AI data centers' unprecedented demand for electricity, carbon emissions are a primary concern. Carbon capture and sequestration is paramount to curbing emissions, but carbon capture and sequestration technologies face challenges as they increase project timelines, raise costs significantly, and are highly regulated by state and federal government authorities. However, regulatory and tax incentives from the federal government are reducing barriers to entry, making gas-powered electricity generation a more attractive option for private sector actors to meet the energy demands of AI data centers. CCS enables natural gas-powered plants to deliver 24/7 reliable electricity at emissions intensities 3 to 4 times lower than the US grid average, at cost competitive with solar and nuclear. CCS technologies can capture up to 90 to 95% of CO2 emissions from large natural gas power plants. The US electrical grid emits 340 to 420 kilograms of carbon emissions per megawatt hour on average. But when gas-fired power plants are paired with CCS technology, a gas-powered plant emits 80 to 120 kilograms of carbon emissions per megawatt hour on average. While renewables and nuclear emit less CO2, gas-powered plants paired with CCS are more dependable and flexible, while also being cost-effective, at $70 to $100 per megawatt hour compared to $77 per megawatt hour for nuclear and $87 per megawatt hour for solar. Without CCS technology, gas-powered plants cost $37 per megawatt hour on average. So CCS roughly doubles the costs for natural gas power plants, but CCS is necessary for gas power plants to be environmentally sustainable on a large scale. Even at $70 to $100 per megawatt hour, gas power plants paired with CCS technology are fiscally competitive with nuclear at 77 and solar at 87. Moreover, scale and regulatory incentives will further reduce costs of gas-powered CCS plants. Also, even though CCS increases construction timelines to build natural gas power plants, they can still be constructed relatively quickly. So CCS-equipped gas plants can effectively supply 24/7 low-emission baseload power, enabling rapid scaling for AI data centers. Further innovations to minimize the CCS unit footprint, leverage waste heat, improve CO2 transportation and storage logistics, and implementation of digital emissions tracking for compliance and transparency will make gas-powered CCS plants even more economically viable moving forward. So there are plenty of regulatory incentives for carbon capture and sequestration. Primarily is Section 45Q tax credits. Section 45Q of the Federal Tax Code was enacted in 2008 to incentivize qualified facilities that capture and permanently sequester or utilize carbon emissions, including emissions from natural gas power plants, through federal tax credits. Under Section 45Q, facilities must begin construction before January 1st of 2033 to be eligible to claim tax credits for the 12-year period after the project is placed into service. Specifically, for natural gas-fired power plants, the facility must capture at least 18,750 metric tons per year of carbon emissions, with equipment designated to capture at least 75% of baseload emissions to qualify for Section 45Q tax credits. As previously mentioned, enacted in July 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act modified the structure of Section 45Q tax credits to increase their value for carbon capture developers. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill, there is one credit value for projects capturing carbon dioxide from industrial and power facilities, $85 per metric ton, and one value for direct air capture products, $180 per metric ton, representing the maximum value of carbon credits under previous iterations of Section 45Q, which you can see here. Previously, the value of Section 45Q tax credits depended on the end use of the captured carbon. So tax credits for capturing carbon from industrial and power facilities varied from $60 to $85 per metric ton, and tax credits for direct air capture projects varied from $130 to $180 per metric ton. But you can see under the One Big Beautiful Bill, they maximize those tax credits on all fronts for carbon capture. Another big issue with carbon capture and sequestration is state primacy. Currently, the most stringent regulatory hurdle for carbon capture and sequestration are the Class 6 well permits. However, currently this hurdle is at an all-time low. Carbon, including CO2 emissions from natural gas power plants, must be stored in a Class 6 well, which is the most regulated classification of disposal well by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA must grant a state primacy over Class 6 wells, meaning that the state has authority to regulate and permit Class 6 wells under the EPA's requirements. To date, only Louisiana, North Dakota, West Virginia, and Wyoming have been granted primacy by the EPA, meaning these are the only states that can permit Class 6 wells for carbon sequestration. However, as part of the EPA's initiative surrounding carbon capture and sequestration, the federal government has expedited the primacy application process. In July 2025, the EPA approved Texas's application for primacy, meaning that the Texas Railroad Commission will be able to regulate and permit Class 6 wells for carbon sequestration in the state, possibly as soon as December of 2025. Texas primacy is a major development in CCS because captured carbon now can be sequestered in Texas, rather than having to be transported long distances to another state that has primacy. As Janette discussed, companies are citing their AI data center projects to try to reduce pipeline transportation on the front end, from the natural gas power plant to the point of use at the AI data center. Similarly, the ability to sequester carbon near the natural gas power plant reduces transportation issues and costs associated with carbon emissions from natural gas power plants. The ability to sequester carbon much closer to the location of the plant itself would drastically decrease transportation costs. And as a result, we've seen Oxy, Exxon, and other super majors in the oil and gas industry recently announce construction projects for natural gas powered plants in Texas, specifically citing the proximity to natural gas sources as a key factor, as well as the ability to sequester carbon in Texas in the future. and this provides just another advantage for siting natural gas power plants in Texas. You can see here the applications for primacy and Class 6 well permits over the last about 5 years. The graph on the right shows the number of Class 6 applications grouped by state over the last 2 years. Starting with the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, you can see that the number of applications across several states has drastically increased in the last couple of years. And on the left, you can see that this is not just something that is going on in Texas. This is a nationwide movement that has momentum in terms of the applications for primacy and the number of Class 6 well permits that states are seeking. Class 6 wells were established in 2010 to regulate CO2 injection of geologic sequestration, with the most rigorous permitting requirements of all UIC well classes. A core UIC Class 6 stipulation is delineation of an area of review, the region surrounding the geologic sequestration project, where potential exists for endangerment of wildlife and other issues. The area of review boundaries are based on predictions from highly complex models of fluid flow and pressure propagation in the subsurface, incorporating detailed descriptions of physical and chemical properties of the in-place and injected fluids, the injection formation, and the surrounding confining zones. Within the area of review, potential conduits for fluid movement out of the injection formation must be identified, and corrective action must be taken as needed to prevent both injected fluid and displaced pore water from affecting other areas. And while there currently is only one active injecting Class 6 well, there are more than 100 permits under technical review, with this number growing rapidly since passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. And so this just exemplifies the momentum of the Class 6 well permits that we're seeing. As to the impacts specific to AI data centers, the One Big Beautiful Bill's sweeping reforms to Section 45Q tax credits establish a uniform and substantially more valuable incentive framework for carbon capture, making gas power plants an attractive option to provide electricity to AI data centers. By integrating carbon capture and sequestration technologies into data center infrastructure, operators and investors can maximize available federal carbon capture incentives while simultaneously managing exposure to long-term costs and policy uncertainties. As AI data center decarbonization becomes a strategic and regulatory imperative, pairing natural gas power with advanced carbon capture and sequestration technologies offers robust, near-term solutions for emissions reduction, operational reliability, and flexible output capacity. The expansion of tax credits and regulatory incentives has tilted the financial equation toward aggressive adoption of natural gas-powered electricity generation, and carbon capture and sequestration makes gas power plants environmentally sustainable for the future. Now I'll turn it over to Alex to discuss how this all impacts the future landscape of the industry and translates to opportunities for all of us.
Thanks, Robert. And now I will close out our presentation by discussing how the proliferation of AI data centers has created opportunities for oil and gas professionals. While we often associate AI with companies like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft, there's a crucial behind-the-scenes role for energy professionals. Oil and gas experts, especially landmen and attorneys, will play a major role in making AI data centers possible. Let's start with landmen. Landmen are the backbone of energy development. They research title ownership, negotiate with landowners, secure leases, and make sure operations comply with regulations. Those same skills are directly relevant to AI data centers, which need reliable land, access to power, and sound permitting. So how can landmen capitalize on this? One way is through smart branding. Most tech companies may not be familiar with what a landman is. So instead of using that term, landmen may consider calling themselves energy infrastructure land consultants or energy site acquisition specialists. From there, landmen should highlight their expertise: title verification, surface rights, easements, and permitting coordination, all of which are essential in site acquisition for AI data centers. The biggest challenge for AI data center developers is finding suitable land close to reliable power resources. Landmen already know how to identify tracts of land that have both surface and mineral harmony, avoiding conflicts that could delay projects. This enables landmen to market themselves as experts who can deliver shovel-ready energy sites. Another way landmen can stay competitive is by integrating technology into their workflow. Platforms like LandApp, for instance, combine GIS mapping, title data, and project management tools into one cloud-based system. Instead of juggling PDFs, spreadsheets, and plats, LandApp centralizes everything: leases, title documents, and track maps into a single dashboard. You can even visualize ownership and pipeline routes and share interactive maps with clients for real-time collaboration. Now, let's talk about oil and gas attorneys. At first glance, tech companies may not realize how valuable our skill set is. But as data centers expand, they'll need counsel experience in energy procurement, fuel supply agreements, surface and mineral rights, regulatory compliance, and environmental permitting. Here's the key again: reposition your branding. Instead of oil and gas attorneys simply calling themselves oil and gas attorneys, we can introduce ourselves as Energy Infrastructure Council or Energy Development Council. Explain that we can advise on land, fuel, and regulatory risks for data center projects. Transactional attorneys will find a wealth of opportunity here. As natural gas remains the go-to energy source for AI data centers, attorneys will be needed to draft and negotiate fuel supply and transportation agreements between tech firms, midstream operators, and gas producers. These contracts ensure long-term, predictable energy delivery, a must-have for stable AI operations. Joint development agreements will also become more common as energy companies partner with tech firms to build power plants directly alongside their data centers. Title attorneys, too, will be in high demand since these projects require large, often complex, tracts of land. Your expertise in surface and mineral analysis, title opinions, and curative documents can be packaged into due diligence reports that tech developers desperately need. And beyond energy law, AI data center development touches other areas, such as environmental compliance, data security, and intellectual property protection, all of which require skilled legal guidance. So in summary, the rapid expansion of AI data centers has created a once-in-a-generation opportunity for oil and gas professionals. These projects rely heavily on natural gas for energy, meaning landmen and attorneys are more relevant than ever. Landmen can use their expertise to identify and negotiate ideal sites for both energy production and data center construction. Attorneys can handle contracts, compliance, and partnerships that make those developments possible. As renewable energy grows, oil and gas professionals should continue to expand their knowledge in renewables as well, so they remain valuable contributors to the future of energy and technology alike.
Okay, we have some questions that have come in from the audience. Number one, what is the estimated growth of AI data centers as projected today?
So between 2025 and 2030, the approximate estimate for growth is about 25 to 30%.
Okay. What about opportunities for natural gas in the northern states?
So there are a lot of opportunities in the northern states. For instance, in Virginia, Virginia is home to 70% of the world's largest data centers, which is also home for 35% of hyperscalers. Northern Virginia also houses some of the biggest data centers for companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta, all with significant data centers, like I said, in Virginia.
Okay, why use natural gas instead of renewable energy to power AI data centers?
Natural gas provides reliable, on-demand, and readily available power source, making it a key option for meeting data centers' high demand. In contrast, renewable energy sources like solar and wind are often irregular and require storage solutions or complementary power sources to ensure constant uptime. But in the future, it is likely that a combination of both natural or renewables and natural gas will both coexist and provide sustainable, reliable power.
Okay. With AI data centers expanding so rapidly, what kind of regulator or zoning challenges could arise for land acquisition?
So that's a good question. One of the biggest emerging challenges is that most zoning and permitting frameworks weren't even designed for AI data centers in mind. These facilities often require industrial-sized energy loads, but they're being proposed in areas that's been zoned for commercial and mixed-use development. So now we're starting to see municipalities go back and revise the zoning codes to address things such as energy consumption, water use for cooling, and environmental impact.
How do you see AI-driven technologies themselves being used in land or title work?
So interestingly enough, AI is already being used to streamline title and land management. Machine learning models can analyze recorded instruments, identify gaps in title, and even flag potential curative issues faster than manual review. AI-powered mapping tools are also integrating parcel data with pipeline and surface infrastructure, giving landmen near real-time insight into where opportunities exist. So landmen who learn to use these AI tools can become more effective and efficient.
Okay. What are the biggest current gaps with CCS for AI data centers?
Take that one. That's a great question. I would say the most significant barriers right now are the lack of pipeline infrastructure to transport CO2 across the country. There's also limited available geologic storage space right now when you actually sequester it in the ground. And that also is partly because of the Class 6 well permitting process. There's just not very many of them right now. And that's kind of what we've seen the government try to address with the acceleration of the permit process. But you have to also kind of like what Alex was saying, there's a lot of factors that go into that environmentally, as in protecting the water sources for residents and everything in the area that need to be taken into account as well. But then I'd also say that the lack of standardized digital emissions reporting is a problem, and just all of this has led to like a lack of carbon capture and sequestration projects overall.
Okay. What technologies are most promising for carbon neutral AI data center solutions?
It's a great question. I would say that fuel cell power generation with integrated carbon capture and compact modular carbon capture sequestration units are very promising, as well as like the Oxy project that was announced. They're doing a direct air capture to address the residual and fugitive emissions, as well as like taking other carbon out of the atmosphere, I believe. And these are really big pathways moving forward for AI data centers in terms of lowering their overall carbon emission footprint.
Okay. Is CCS economically viable without tax credit incentives?
No. Carbon capture and sequestration is not fiscally competitive without Section 45Q tax credits, but neither are renewables. Renewables also need tax credits and incentives to be fiscally competitive as well. And the problem with carbon capture and sequestration with natural gas power plants is it like roughly doubles your cost when you have to incorporate that, and we have to incorporate it moving forward because without reducing your carbon emissions through sequestration, you would be environmentally unfriendly completely. So, but in terms of without tax credits, no, they are not fiscally competitive.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really enjoyed this topic. If you have any further questions about the topic, feel free to reach out to us. My email is in one of our slides today. Or if you have other title questions, I work in the Appalachia region, primarily in title, so feel free to reach out. Like I said, my email is in the slide. Thank you.
So thank you all for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We really appreciate it. We had a great time researching this topic and presenting it to you all. As I said in the introduction, I believe this is a very timely project as we're in the midst of the AI boom, and there really are a lot of opportunities that oil and gas professionals can take advantage of. As I said before, my name is Alex Love. I'm in the Houston office. I work in the Permian team, but I've also did work for the Baca team as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or reach out to me. I do title work primarily. And yes, thank you again for taking your time to listen to this presentation.
We really appreciate everyone's time today. Again, my name is Robert Royce. I work in our Houston office as an attorney. I'm on our Haynesville team, and we primarily do obviously the Haynesville, but also the Eagle Ford as well. And I primarily do title and transactional work. And I just wanted to reiterate from Alex and Janette that we appreciate everyone's time and we really enjoy this topic. So please reach out with questions if you have any. You can find our contact information in the PowerPoint. So thank you very much.